Greetings in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Thank you guys again for joining us as we continue this journey, touching lives, one student at a time. I want to thank you guys for tuning in today on the many social media platforms and also on the show. We want to thank Dr. Scott for joining us. We want to thank Mr. Kendall Reyes for being a part of our show again today. And I know today is going to be very enlightening, informative, and good information. As usual, I have my pen and paper here, and I think you should have yours there to get some information, on going forward, getting into the schools abroad and what is required and the information that is going to be shared. Please feel free to text your questions below to us on social media sites. Feel free to also text your information on different social media sites as we are monitoring those social media sites. And let me bring on my two wonderful guests that is here with me today. Guys, thank you so much for being a part of the show today.
All right, thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Beautiful. Thank you guys for gracing us with your presence. I know you guys have very interesting information to share with us today as we continue to bring the guests on the show, different guests on the show from different walks of life, different parts of the world, to enlighten and inform. And let's take the show on the road, guys, so we could get it going and the kids and family and parents can go forward. So I turn the set over to you, Dr. Scott, and also to Kendall. I'm taking notes.
Again, thank you for having us. I am Lauren Semper Scott, and my colleague is
Kendall Reyes.
And we come to this as educators, parents, people who have worked in the field, and so we are going to do our best to share some pretty basic information, but information that we know is helpful to get you started in the process. So I'm going to start with the goals. There's an open mic. And thank you. And then I'll turn it over to Kendall. So basically, we want to give parents and students a kind of framework to guide your thinking and research for how you approach this task of choosing a school for higher ed in the US. And we want to provide a foundation of information basically about the process. There's a lot of information, there's a lot of misinformation. So we hope to kind of cut through the chase and through the noise and bring you information that at least gets you started on the right track and with information that's factual, not hypothetical things. So here we go. Mr. Rose.
Well, thank you. So of course, when we do our presentations, we always want to address our learning objectives. So by the end of this session, obviously, we want our participants to be able to at least name 5 factors that should inform them about the college search, and then be able to explain the differences or have an understanding of the differences between public versus private institutions, research versus teaching institutions, and then the different overall types of education institutions that could be available to them. All right, our purpose within the framework obviously is for you to understand why are you pursuing U.S. higher education opportunities. We're going to touch on the process. What does college application process involve? And then of course, preparation. What is necessary for you to be ready and to be successful? And of course, persistence. Do you have stamina for the journey? There's a lot of information. There's a lot of things that you have to process to get going, but then also when you get here, there's also things that you have to be aware of, and it can be challenging sometimes. So persistence, perseverance is also very important. Okay, so for some people, the primary purpose would be because of academic and career aspirations, for athletic aspirations. Some do it for social status and a combination thereof. So, in our backgrounds, for me, I was a student athlete here. So I've had both a combination. I'd be one of the combination people. All right, so involved in the process would be understanding higher education, the system, because it is different from our system in the Caribbean, knowing the requirements, understanding the eligibility standards, both for academic admissions and for the athlete to be eligible to participate in college athletics. And then obviously you have to research a variety of schools, but then to how to evaluate those schools, and then connecting with the officials, with coaches and other department heads that you're interested in from an academic standpoint. All those are elements involved in the process. Okay, so for the student athlete, there's a combination between academics and admissions and eligibility. So the requirements to get into the school is one standard. To be eligible to participate, depending on the level you're going into, that's a different standard. So there are those requirements, which include your GPA, your SAT score or ACT, your class rank, and whether you go into Division I or II using the sliding scale. And then with Division III schools, they have the process that's called the early acceptance process. For the non-athletes, it's a little bit less, but similar in terms of requirements for admission, and using the grade point average, SAT, ACT score, and class rank. While you don't use the class rank in the Caribbean, but your GPA and your SAT score, those are two of the primary criteria that would be used for the admissions process. Okay, so in preparation, all students, their academic preparation is based on their subjects that they study and the grades that they get, or the number of passes, and of course their test scores. In addition to those things, the student athlete needs to have a playing history, a mention of any awards or achievements or recognition they've earned. You have to be able to identify your primary and secondary positions that you play. And then of course, video footage is a very, very important piece, especially in the early stages of the process. And in addition, you can also have a coach's recommendation, whether it's your secondary school coach or club coach or a national team coach, but someone who can verify and speak on your behalf in terms of your abilities as a student athlete. So when we talk about academic requirements, there's a couple of links we have in here that will take you to the specific information. The NCAA and NAIA eligibility clearinghouse. These are requirements. If you're going to compete in collegiate athletics, you have to register with the NCAA and NAIA clearinghouse, okay? What they do is they take all your test scores, they take your transcripts, all those are sent directly from your schools, and they're evaluated in the clearinghouse, you're registered, and that's where you're determined, the determination is made on if you're eligible to participate in college athletics and at what level you're eligible. So you can be admitted to a school, but not meet the eligibility requirements. You could meet eligibility requirements and not be admitted to a school. So really understanding the differences in those, especially if you're looking at Division I or Division II programs, this is something that has to be done. You must be registered with the NCAA clearinghouse. And so we pulled from the link, go to that particular website. You can go and find your country. In this case, we pulled up Trinidad and Tobago. It gives you an overview of the comparisons that are made. For example, you see in the background, they're talking about the academic calendar runs September through June. And so what is year 9 called? Year 9 is equivalent to Form 3, okay? And so here we go by years. So, you know, freshman, junior, sophomore, and or they go by a number grade, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. You become a recruitable student athlete when you hit 9th grade. That's the first time you can have interaction with coaches, limited interaction with coaches in regard to recruiting and discussing attending a university and scholarships, okay? They talk a little bit further down, you will see what is accepted, acceptable forms of proof of high school graduation. So something, your documentation that shows the issuing body from the various examining boards, you know, whether it's CSEC or CXC, any of those things, your documentation has to show that, and it will be confirmed in that you have completed an 11-year academic course of study or equal to the number of semesters. You can go to the next one, yeah. And again, this is on the following page here, where again, it gives you a follow-up on the issuing body, again, the type of examination you need to have. And then down there, you'll see the crediting policy. So basically, when we talk about grade point average in the US system, they use a 4-point system. Some use a 5-point, but most of them use a 4-point system. And it's equivalent to the grading system that we have, whether it's A, B, C, or D. They have a 1, 2, 3, or 4. And so this is where they show you what the equivalencies in the crediting system. So, you know, for example, you know, a 4 or a 4 plus is considered a 1, and then or an A or A plus, and then a B would be a 3. Okay, and so that's how the crediting system is done here. And as you go further down, you'll see the comparison between the grades. If you have an A at a certain level, what that transfers to, or what the equivalency of it is, you would see. So again, from the links that we had, what we shared there on the NCAA website, you can go in, find your specific country, and then be able to look exactly at what those requirements are. So this other slide here, again, talks about the grading scale. If you have a 1 in your CAPE, it's equivalent to a USA, which is equivalent to a 4-point system. If you have a 2 in CAPE, it's also considered an A, still a 4 points. And then if you have a 3, it's equivalent to a B in the US system, and then it's 3 point. And then they calculate the average of those quality points to get you your grade point average. All right, so one of the things for the student athlete is understanding what the academic requirements are. And so we have what I call the core course requirements. A certain number of years you should have taken certain course subjects. And what it shows here is based on the US system, 4 years of English, 3 years of math, 2 years of physical sciences, and then an additional year of English, or the other ones, 2 years of social sciences, and 4 years of any additional courses that are related there. And then these are used to determine if you're going to be a full qualifier or a partial qualifier. Those things make a difference in terms of scholarships and eligibility to play. Eligibility is one of the key pieces you have to understand. So before a coach would offer you a scholarship, they want to know if you're eligible, if you're going to be eligible. So your transcripts, getting your transcripts in early enough so that it could be evaluated in the NCAA clearinghouse. The clearinghouse does a report for each school, and the compliance officer from each institution can go into the clearinghouse. They can pull your information up, and they can see if you're qualified, if you're a partial qualifier, or full qualifier, and then they would notify the coach and say, okay, this player is going to be a full qualifier, so it's okay for us to offer this scholarship. Some schools might offer you a scholarship even though you're not a full qualifier, depending on what circumstances, and you might be a player they really want. And even though you're not a full qualifier, they can still bring you in, but in a limited capacity. You might not be able to train with the team for the first semester, the first year, but you have a scholarship. You have to meet certain academic requirements to get to that standard before you can do that. Other schools may say, if you're not a qualifier, we can't give you a scholarship because we don't have enough money to sit on a year while you're not participating. So these things are really, really important as you go forward. Division 2 has the same setup. It's slightly lower in terms of the number of core courses that you have, or where those are designated. For example, in Division 1, you saw there was 4 years of English. In Division 2, it's 3. Okay, and so again, they still have the same system, which is the full qualifier and the partial qualifier. If you look closely, you will see you have to have a GPA. So they don't always look, they only look at your overall GPA. They also look at the GPA for your core courses. And that's where that determination is made. So in your core courses, you need to earn at least a 2.2 grade point average within your core courses. And then your SAT or ACT scores work on what they call a sliding scale. So we'll get to that next. And based on those things, those factors are how you're determined to be eligible.